isn't any room for doubt. Without a doubt, it's real then. Someone's gone and ruled you out. Funny what a fool you feel when you fall out of frame. It all looks a shame, but baby, believe me, you're still in the game. You're still in the game.
The title music for A Bunch of Amateurs came about because of a previous project that I'd worked on called Chasing Liberty, which was a film that was directed by Andy Cadiff, and I believe that David Parfitt had a part in that as well. At that time I had been working with Christian on a separate project, and Christian had mentioned to me that there was a space in the film that perhaps needed a song, and I pitched a song which eventually ended up being the end credit song for Chasing Liberty. And Andy and David teamed up again to make A Bunch of Amateurs, and thought of me, which was very kind of them.
I got the film because I'd worked on a film called Chasing Liberty with Andy Cadiff, director, and David Parfitt, esteemed producer, and they were very happy with my score, so I was pleased 4 years later that they invited me back on Bunch of Amateurs. And I felt that it was a very different kind of film in the sense that it wasn't a teen romance, which is what Chasing Liberty was. It was more of an adult comedy. Not adult comedy is the wrong word, it's a kind of Brit comedy kind of thing. And I was just really pleased at the end when I said, "So Andy, what are you going to do for the titles, or what do you want to leave your audience with?" And that's when I got on the blower to Caroline and said, they want us to write something.
I think that in film, which is very nice, and I'm sure in music as well, you tend to have teams that come back together over and over again. It's a bit like that, and in this case it was definitely Christian again, and Andy and David, and Christian had done the score for the film, and it felt completely natural because it kind of came straight off the back of the album. And so we were already sort of a well-oiled machine by that time, and so it was a really pleasurable experience, actually.
Well, it's interesting. The musical concept for Still in the Game, I have to admit, is inspired totally by the experience I had with Caroline's album.
We'd got to a point, Christian and I, certainly, where we had established a working relationship that enabled us to just go in all directions until we found the right direction and rein ourselves back in and proceed. There was what's so enjoyable about the way we work together at the moment is that there's no ego involved. And
well, I sat down with the director. He said the Burt Reynolds character needs a theme, his daughter, they have a relationship, they need a theme, and then the theatre itself needs a theme. And when the director said to me, I really like the theme you've come up with for Amanda, Burt Reynolds' daughter's character, or Jefferson Steele's daughter's character, he said, "Is there any way, do you think Caroline can work a song out of that theme?" And that's how we approached it. So what's nice about it is you get to the end, the credits roll up, and you're hearing something that's strangely familiar but not obviously.
Well, the concept for the song for A Bunch of Amateurs was interesting, actually, because of course the film is not a love story, and most of my music is all about love, loss, and that kind of thing. And so when I was given the brief for A Bunch of Amateurs, I was quite it was disappointing and challenging at the same time, because I was like, well, it's not going to be a walk in the park, because suddenly I'm not allowed to write this love song. What I'm going to have to do is write something that's going to work in both instances. It's going to have to be something that has a dual meaning, and so I wrote this song called Still in the Game, and I wrote it in two veins. Obviously, the story of the film is there's an aging Hollywood actor, possibly past his sell-by date, wants to reinvigorate his career, and he ends up doing Shakespeare in Stratford St John, I think, instead of Stratford upon Avon, and it was all about him being still in the game, and he proves that he is in fact still in the game. But of course the other side of that was that I wrote a song that was perhaps to someone who felt like they weren't going to be able to make it anymore in love.
I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about Still in the Game was reuniting some of the fantastic players that we had on Caroline's album.
But there was a real moment when the horn section came in, and we'd certainly arranged the music and decided on where certain notes were going to be and how they were going to be played, but they were all played on a synthesizer, and so there's no real substitute for the sound of horns when they're like proper, like, and they're there, and it's like zzz, and it buzzes, it goes through your entire body, you can't avoid it. And it was and in they came and they started to play, and suddenly I couldn't believe that this was my music.
But we also got in a quartet called the Saccone Quartet, this young band. I'd wanted them originally on Caroline's album, but they're so overbooked, we couldn't get them. And they're absolutely amazing. In this country, you do have the best musicians on the planet. And what I approached Caroline with is, what we'll do is we'll put together a band and we will have the best tuba player literally on the planet, the best French horn player, Richard Watkins, on the planet. I mean, these really are the top players, and a lot of people don't realise, making music in this country, that, you know, for a relatively small amount of money you can just ring these guys up and they'll go, yeah, sure, come down and do it, you know, provided the dots are there.
I went to the Royal Gala performance of A Bunch of Amateurs. It was a very proud moment for me. I never thought that I would I certainly never thought I'd be in the same room as the Queen, and I definitely didn't think that we'd be watching a movie together. But we got a really good look at her because we were in the stalls and she was on the dress circle, so it was like, hi.